All right, in this article about modernity, we see that our contemporary society is categorized by many diverse forms of communication, and this isn't accidental. There are many diverse experiences that we encounter, so it would seem necessary that there are many different ways that we talk about these things and communicate about them. Certain patterns of this modern communication, such as ethnocentric communication that we talked about in the last reading, they persist and develop even more and more as people employ them in their everyday interactions. Uh, Also, as new material circumstances emerge and evolve, we encounter a wide variety of new forms of communication because of this introduction of new material things. The term modernity doesn't necessarily mean modern, shiny, current, new. It refers to a period in time in which new ideas were acknowledged and accepted, like the Enlightenment period, whereas modern refers more to the time in which we find ourselves now. So we'd like to address the question of how did communication change when modernity took its role in today's world. We see that ethnocentric forms of communication became prevalent, and but ethnocentrism wasn't necessarily a falling back into old ways or neglecting modernity. Modernity itself is characterized by the presence of ethnocentrism. For example, although modernity supplied many revolutionary answers to traditional questions that Westerners had, there were, many great strides were taken to explore these questions. Ethnocentrism was always present in the encounters and understandings of those that we met with. Um, with this curiosity still came a predisposition to maintain your own viewpoint and your own opinion. And this was very characteristic of this time of modernity. This idea that there was a constant truth was very prevalent in modernity. This Western tradition suggested that truth existed outside human agency. So even if a person decides that they do not believe or agrees with the facts of something, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is wholly untrue. There is an absolute truth that stands regardless of agreement or disagreement. And this is unfortunately a perfect rationale for those who communicate and communicated back then and still communicate ethnocentrically. They are able to rationalize that although another may not accept the truth, the absolute truth that they see, the speaker, they themselves, um, is find that their arguments are backed up by this constant truth. The structure of modernity. Within modernity, we see groupings of stories and reconstructed practices, and all of these things achieve coordination, how we, link up and meet each other, and as well as coherence and mystery. The questions of modernity are similar to some of the others that we have studied before. Who am I? Who are we? Where did we come from? And what is this world that we live in? Where did it begin? These practices of modernity are a little inherently problematic. We, in modern societies, as well as those who lived primitively, profess to know how to anticipate and to react to the actions of others. We see that our reactions are outlined and kind of predetermined by these patterns that we witness in the roles in the time around us, or in the actions that we see around us and the roles that we see. These assumptions are changed in modernistic communication. So instead of a stable set script that we know exactly how to react, there's kind of this mutual improvisation through our interactions. In order to achieve coordination through modernity, we have to act upon these subtle cues that each of us lay down through our interactions. Modernity changes these resources and practices that we once had so solidified, and causes us to have a less stable um, foundation for our communications. Mod- so So coordination isn't quite as stressed within modernity. However, coherence is stressed. Modernity seeks to change these resources in practice. Change and progress is encouraged and praised in modernity. So any quest for change, seeking for better coherence, is praised and encouraged. And lastly, mystery becomes difficult in modernistic communication because there are few elements other than the fact that change and progress are positive. Any other mystery is simply teasing or goading an explanation to define the mysterious and proving ordinary, which is very difficult. So, kind of the overarching sentiment of modernity seems to be that the individual is worthwhile if they're displaying the latest trends and clothing behavior and thought and are the same newest and most prominent opinion as those around him, or as the majority of those around him.